Welcome. I'm Monique, and on this series of A New Peace Within Spiritual Journey, we talk to established psychics, mediums, and other spiritual practitioners about those first years on their journey. Today, we have a very special guest, someone that I have been working with over the past few months as my own personal mentor, Nancy Weber. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I'm fine, Monique. Thank you for having me here.
Nancy is not only an intuitive, a medical intuitive, and an animal communicator, and a songwriter, and she educates people on holistic health, but she's also a psychic investigator, which I find super fascinating. And so, Nancy, I just want to pass it over to you if you want to talk a little bit about these diversity of psychic practices that you have.
Sure. I think the most important part for me is there is something we all get. These gifts are all there for everybody. And the word psychic to me simply means we have a soul and we're in communication if we listen, and let it happen. So for me, there's no difference between writing a song. Well, there's a difference, but not a lot. And giving a reading. I'm a nurse by training. So when I'd walk into a room when I was a young woman, I was 18, I think, when I was a registered nurse, I'd walk in and I would use my intuition. And I would do the same thing at the desk when a doctor would bring somebody in and I'd go, doesn't have congestive heart failure. Why don't you do an upper GI? I think I was 19 when I opened my mouth that way. So I don't see the difference between that and sitting with Elaine Silver, folk singer, and composing lyrics and music in song, or writing a book, or they all come from the same hub, soul. And Da Vinci said it. I think he said it best. Everything is connected to everything. And in a letter, he said, all I do is focus the light in a direction.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly in dealing with the darker side, homicide, and things like real espionage that I've been involved in, and whatever else that's pretty horrific, it needs light.
Mm.
It needs us using our light and bringing the light out in a situation. No different than sitting with somebody who wants a psychic reading or knows that something's wrong or is on a spiritual journey and simply wants to really reinforce the journey more, or knows that it's difficult to see ourselves. I always love when somebody can really hone in and say something to me that says, oh, you actually know who I am.
Right.
Same way. I think we all like that.
Absolutely. And at that young age, at 18, 19 years old, I mean, was this where you were when you first started realizing you were on a journey, or did that happen for you when you were younger? Like, when did you recognize it?
It's funny. When I was in my crib, there was a guy who would stand outside my crib. He had big dark eyes, big guy for a little girl. And he would tell me things.
Oh, wow.
And they were true. And I would know things. And over years, the first few years of my life, he was always there. And the last I knew of him, he was when I was, I think, 13 or 15, when my sister was going 9 months pregnant, and he told me the moment she would give birth, the weight, everything about the child. And I told her, but nobody knew about the guy. For some reason, I didn't want to talk about it to anybody. I think it's because of when I said things, my mother backpedaled fast.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say it's a journey, that part of the journey was I knew something was different. I never talked about it to anybody. I didn't talk as a nurse about it. I just thought you go into the healthcare fields or psychology. I was toying between being a psychologist, psychiatrist, or nurse. And I just didn't want to stay in school very long.
Mm.
But I didn't think of that part of the journey as the journey I thought of when I was 31 and started taking it very, very seriously.
Yeah.
That is an amazing, not just something that happens or whatever. It really, when I see the lotus as the image of petals opening up, and in East they talk about it, it's the thousands of petals opening constantly.
Right.
That's when I was 31, where I believed that I had to really take a good look at everything. And I didn't call it psychic.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. I just tuned in and said whatever, and people started showing up. It was not planned.
Wow.
I had no clue what a business plan is, and nor did I try. I was disabled with 2 kids and couldn't go back to nursing, really. I knew I had worked in psychiatric nursing very well and experimental, hardly any drugs ever for acute psychotics, loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I really took it seriously enough that when I had to leave and stay home and figure my life out,
Mm-hmm.
no money, that's when the world opened up that way.
Huh.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful?
So it was like an experiment, right? Because it sounds like you took it seriously, but you still didn't really know where it was going to lead you, which is kind of a common theme where you're just like, okay, I'm in it, I feel it, and you just go with it. When you say that the world kind of opened up for you, mm-hmm. What do you think kept you moving forward? What kind of evidence or insights did you get that confirmed that you're moving forward and you're on something, you're onto something?
The first one I remember very clearly. I had been married to somebody else, and he made an appointment for me with a psychic, and we lived in Westchester County, New York, and this was a psychic in Brooklyn, where I had grown up. I didn't want to go see a psychic. I didn't even know people did that. I thought, no, thank you. Yeah. Only I had 2 kids. My son was 6 months old, my daughter 5.5, and I was in total agony all the time. I had, prior to that, many years before, I had been almost murdered. So when I was pregnant with my first, so I was left very disabled. Spine twist, paralyzed at times.
Oh, wow.
Body brace, 33 hospitalizations, near death a few times. So fast forward, the night before I went to see the psychic, I dreamt that my house was on fire. I had to rescue everybody. I was terrified of going to see a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it now and I go figure. And so I went, and the most beautiful thing happened with this man. Erwin Grief was his last name, Grief. Mm-hmm. He didn't predict anything.
Okay.
He told me who I was, and I knew he knew. I had never had anybody ever stop and say to me things that said they understood who I was. I was in shock. He said, go home and heal yourself. Don't go to healers. And I'm thinking, I don't go to anybody like that. And I went home and I put my hands on my back and I said, I have no discs from L3 down. I was born with some disability also.
Wow.
So, and my left leg was, the nerves in it were almost totally all gone and destroyed. Wow. So there I was, not believing. And I said, okay, God, if you're there, heal me. I woke up pain-free.
Oh, wow. That's
I was
great.
afraid to tell anybody. I wouldn't say a word. So about a week goes by, and I turned to somebody. I said, do you notice anything different about me? And they said, yes. I said, what? They said, you're not mean, or something to that effect. I'm not quoting them. And I said, thank you. I got it. I wasn't in pain.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking karate, taekwondo, and people saw that who knew me. Mm-hmm. And that's how things started. They started coming in and saying, help me. And I'm going, help you. And the man came back, who I saw as a baby.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I was in shock.
Holy cow.
And I argued with him. Who are you and what are you?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Wow.
It was so much fun. And I was very, very blessed to live in an area in Croton-on-Hudson and in Peekskill in New York. Because who was there at the time? Andrea Puharich. And if you look him up, I ended up working with him. Mm-hmm. And he was buddies with Marcel Vogel from California. Okay. I ended up working with him. Dr. Edith Yerka was a world traveler. Andrea Puharich was the man who brought Uri Geller, Peter Herkos, and Ingo Swann to this country and opened up the doors for them in parapsychology. Okay. He worked with Aldous Huxley. He had the original Faraday cage that they built for their Aldous Huxley and his research. I was in it. I did research. Wow. It was fascinating. I mean, that's why I'm saying everything just opened up. Right. This was my gang. These were the people who I hung out with, and I was 31. They were mostly in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And all of them just opened all the doors for me. And then I had opportunities to do some very wild and crazy, and I backpedaled real fast. I didn't want to go out in the world. I didn't want to meet all the presidents, and everything opened up, and I said no. It didn't feel right. I am more shy and introverted, but also it was intrigue. And I had a very strong feeling it would not be a wise thing to do, to associate with everyone in that way. Right. And so I did. However, I got great help and open doors, and the people in the environmental movement I got to meet, who took me into the very beginning of it, of the AntiNuke movement. I worked with them. People in each field. Yeah. And it was like looking at a kaleidoscope of life constantly. Mm-hmm. And the other side just opened up all over the place. And during that period, my aunt died. And she and my grandmother were my two favorite people on the earth. And her husband died 2 weeks after her. And I was lying down taking a nap while my son had his whole 10-minute nap a day. And I'm lying there taking deep breaths, and I hear my aunt's voice. And this is in the first year of 31 to 32. Okay. And she said, "Hi, Nancy, how are you?" And I, Boy, I'm good. I can even remember her voice. And she goes, "You always were a skeptic." I said, "Well, prove something to me." And she said, "Okay, next Thursday night, your mother will have a dream. And in that dream, it will be very unique." And she named everybody on both sides, gone and here, who will be there at a picnic, and your mother will burn the steak. I wrote it down in a composition book. I wrote everything down for the first 3 years. Time, dates, who, what, mental chatter, everything. And the following week, I called my mother Friday morning, and she said, "Oh, I had a very unique dream last night. I was just telling Dad." I said, "What?" She said, "Well, we were at a picnic." I said, "Okay. Was Aunt Katie there, Uncle?" And I named everybody. And by the time I finished naming everyone, she said, wow, she was screaming. And I said, and you burned the steak? And she said, yes, I did. And she was so upset. And I said, regards from Katie. And I hung up.
That's a fabulous story. And it's funny. There was a couple of things that you said that I think are really important to point out to people. This week I was at a business event, and one of the topics was about your squad and the people that you surround yourself with. And one of the topics that I have had in the past with people is about when you take this journey seriously, there is a natural gravitation where people start to come to you, and then people start to walk away, and you start to build different relationships. But in this conversation that you just had with me, and I just heard this week, as a matter of fact, is about who you choose to have in your squad, actually actively seeking out people to be mentors and advisors and guidance. And that can be in the spiritual world, and that can be in the physical world. But how you choose those people helps you to form your decision making and give you some guidance on where you focus your path and things like that. And I think it's critical, not just on a spiritual path, but just in your life journey as well. And I just want to, kind of confirm that with you. And also something else you said was about taking notes. You said it quickly, but it is a critical piece to this whole journey is if I'm going to see that I am growing and learning, that sometimes I need to write some things down, and to kind of validate for myself that something has changed within me, even if I don't get that feedback from others. What do you think about that?
Oh, you just hit a chord and a half.
Yeah.
I think most people are curious about not only ourselves and our surroundings, etc., and the world of being psychic and clairvoyant, clairaudient, but all of it, medium. I also think we're curious about what life really is, and time, space, physics, and all that. And when you're talking about that, I found that it really helped me to record everything. I remembered when I was 10, I had 2 recurring dreams that were very insistent. And one of them was I had a limp left leg. Mm-hmm. I was 17. I worked in the bakery of a French estate in the south of France, and I baked bread. I was one of the bakers. I was taught how early on when I was like 5. Mm-hmm. I baked the bread. I ended up, after several dreams of that, telling my mother I'm going to the store because I'm going to make bread. She didn't bake or cook. She hated it. So she said, what are you taught? So I went, and I even took a brick and sprayed it with water to get the crust and all the rest. And she thought this was crazy. Many years later, when my son was 14 months old, he spoke a language none of us knew. One time he was 6 months old. Turns out he was speaking French. And he said, when you worked for me in my estate. So that was like,
wow.
Okay, that's really bizarre, right?
Yeah.
And so I wrote it all down. And the other one was a dream I had the night of my 31st birthday. And it was a very long one. But in it, 2 of the things that stand out about what you said is I had a grand piano in the dream. I didn't have a piano. I didn't play piano. I played it when I was 10, when my sister had lessons, and I would listen, and then I'd play. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a piano. In the dream, I had a piano. I had 2 living rooms. Go figure, right? And I wrote songs and poetry that helped others. And I thought, well, I don't do any of that. Okay? But I wrote it down, right, among other things it said, because it also talked about the light and all kinds. It was a wild dream. So I was 31. And that was 1975, and we were living in Peekskill at the time. 1979, events took place in which we moved to New Jersey. We had no clue about that before. And as I moved in, a woman named Helen Surfling, who's no longer on this earth, hi Helen, was a dear friend, and she was the art director of Mademoiselle magazine, I think, or something. And she was moving. And she said, well, I wanted to let you know, because you have 2 living rooms in a stone dwelling, which was part of the dream also. I am giving away my grand piano. I'm giving it to you, and it won't cost you anything. I've got movers. They're going to be delivering it to one of your rooms. You just tell me where.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I went, my dream. And I went back to my book, because you know how time goes by. So what I'm saying is, hello, Stephen Hawkins. We all get curious and go, well, I had been predicting many things before that. How did I know it? Yeah. That's what got me inspired to look at physics, inspired to look at, are we really all here? Or we,
right.
You know, at age 10, I also had a dream where I saw a woman sitting opposite me, and she had a British accent. And she said, and now it's your turn to give me a reading. And I woke up and I thought, that's funny, what's a reading? So I'm 31, and I'm invited to a friend's house who has a friend coming from the UK to give readings. And I had never, Irwin was one reading and that was it. And all of a sudden there were people who did readings, and it sounded interesting. So I said yes. And I went. And this woman, Margaret Waddell Flavel, turns out she's why everyone knows about psychics. Ruth Matheson wrote the book, Witness from Beyond. It was Ruth Matheson edited it. Her husband, A.D., when he died, spoke through Margaret. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross read the book and was inspired to do hospice. So, but I didn't know any of that. She's sitting opposite me, and she's given me a reading, and then she smiled and she said, yes. I said, I know. I had a dream. I was 10 when I saw you. She said, yes, and now it's your turn to give me a reading. Words out of my mouth.
Wow.
So I'm going, how is that all possible? How is all of it? But during day, 6th grade, I'm standing outside in the corner. I wouldn't go home, and they said, why? I said, I'm waiting for the limo to take me to the UN. I have work there. And I did that every day for days, and they called my home and told my mother something's very wrong with me. 5th grade, I think, something. And when I got involved with everybody, some of the people I got involved with founded something called World Day at the UN for non-GOs, non-governmental. And they wrote me in. And then a friend called and said, I have another friend who wants to come in and work on it with you. I said, sure. So he agreed to meet me in Jersey and drive with me. So I park my car, get out at a hotel, and I walk over, meet him, and he walks me to a limo. And we go to the UN every week.
That's great.
And I'm going, how do you know this when you're 9 and 10? So is that destiny? Is it free will? Are some things already planned out as potentials? I find it all fascinating, but maybe it's creativity for everyone. Who knows?
These are great examples. Thank you so much for sharing that.
They're fun. And that's why I laugh a lot.
Yeah, that's fabulous. It's a great example of why we should be writing stuff down, and so that we can acknowledge it, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, and for everyone watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So, Nancy, if someone wanted to reach out to you, talk to you, there's so many things that you have skills in and experience in. What would you like to say to them?
I'd like to tell them to go to the website first.
Okay.
And take a look and see if this resonates. I do some regular readings. I don't do a lot of them. Most of the time now. I've backed off doing a lot of work that way. I'm writing books, I'm doing a bunch of different things, and I use essential oils a lot and train people in the usage. And so I've got a lot of different avenues. I take very few crime cases these days because I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of them. And I'm very careful about what I do with them now. Mediumship, I tell people, I don't put everything on the website I do. I simply email, but read first a little bit. Mentoring is one of my favorite things to do when it comes to working with people, because you encourage others to use their powers well. They have them, like you do. And just as you said about business and what you saw this week for yourself, you see all the connections. And that means that you will add to this world well and serve many. And that's a privilege to work with people like that. It's an absolute privilege. I love that.
That's great. And I loved it too. It was amazing. It was a really great experience.
I'm glad.
And I want to let everyone know to keep an eye out for your books. You mentioned that you had a psychic detective book coming out, and you mentioned an animal communication book to come out as well. So keep an eye out for Nancy Weber, and I will put her website also in the description. So thanks again, Nancy, so much for joining. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.
Thank you. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you. If you enjoyed that video, please like and subscribe.